Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for taking the time to listen to another installment of the NTC podcast. Aaron Washington back with you guys hosting. Always a pleasure. Glad that you guys are taking some time out of your day to kind of check out what we have going on over at NTC. You guys are in for a treat here today because I have a very special guest joining me on this recording. This is going to be Law Murray. He does a lot of great work for the Athletic NBA. If you guys have checked out their power rankings, he is all over those every week, giving you the breakdown of what teams are trending up, trending down. Does a great job of that, giving you a short little breakdown for all those teams in the league. All 30 teams start every week. So really great work by Law here. I encourage you guys to check it out, especially if you're looking for Clippers coverage. He does a lot of in-depth coverage for the Clippers in the arena all the time, following that team, what they got going on. So Law, I really appreciate you, man. Thanks for taking the time. I know you got a lot going on. You're real busy, man, but we appreciate you taking the time to join NTC. So thanks again. And we're looking forward to this conversation.
Hey, same here, man. I always like talking hoop, man, and it's finally good to get on and do this with you, Aaron.
Absolutely, man. We think the same way over here, man. Hoops is what we do. We cover all kinds of facets of the game, and it's always a great time. So we're going to follow the format that Law basically uses for the power rankings over at the Athletic, looking at some risers, looking at some sliders, some teams that are going one or two directions. At this point in the schedule, we are, I want to say, around 3/4 of the way through the NBA campaign. So we're getting a clearer picture of what teams are legit, which teams are not, and which teams maybe are somewhere in the middle. And we're going to get into all of those here on this installment of the pod for episode 133. So lock in everybody and let's get right to it. We're going to start here, Law, with some risers across the league. A few teams here that are going in the positive direction over the past several weeks here, especially since the trade deadline. This first team that we're going to cover is probably the biggest beneficiary of the transaction that they made during the trade deadline. They're cruising right now. They're doing a lot of great things. This is going to be the Golden State Warriors. We're going to cover first on this podcast. Ever since they got Jimmy, man, they've been on a upward trajectory. They've been killing it, 12-2 in their last 14 games. They've won 10 straight with Jimmy Butler in the lineup, generating the fifth best offense. They have the second best defense over that stretch. By all accounts, this is a team that's looking pretty serious here. They're doing a lot of great things, and it seems like Jimmy has kind of reinvigorated this team by all accounts. Curry looks reinvigorated. Draymond, they kind of got out of those doldrums they were in the middle of the season. And I think Jimmy's been a great fit here because he's one of those guys that doesn't need the ball every possession. He's more than willing to let Curry do his thing, let other guys get involved. But at the same time, he can be aggressive and he can get into the paint and generate easy shots, generate a lot of free throws, which is something this team needed. They weren't really great at that before the trade. So now that he is there acting as a connector, generating rim attempts, getting things rolling for the Warriors, they look like a totally new team on both ends of the floor. Because as we know, based on his time with the Heat and other teams, I mean, he can lock down on the other end as well. So he's really helping the Warriors on both ends of the floor. So I guess my first question here, Law, to you to kind of start this off. When it comes to Jimmy, what have you noticed from him that's really kind of boosted this team to get them to this point? And now that he is with the team, do you kind of see this team as like a dark horse contender, ready to make a deep playoff run, or do you think they're still kind of missing something if they want to get to that level?
I think the most important thing Jimmy does is he complements what they have on both ends of the floor. Offensively, Jimmy gets in the line, which is something that the Warriors were terrible at for most of the season. And now you see that they are making up that free throw differential. And that goes on both ends of the floor. Jimmy Butler, I don't think gets enough credit for how well he defends, makes plays without fouling. Like Jimmy's had some seasons where he has more steals than fouls. I don't know if people realize how hard that is to do. Like
Right.
that's a Kawhi Leonard thing,
Yep.
And so if you got a guy who can defend multiple positions on the wing, make plays, not have guys go to the free throw line, you're going to be better defensively. And then on the other end of the floor, he's always going to be a guy who fits a motion offense. Like people who watch the Miami Heat had to see like that Miami Heat team is always an adjustment for, especially when you are playing them and you haven't been used to, seeing the Heat. A lot of Western Conference teams are kind of shocked by the Heat's movement. Well, the Warriors, that's all we know with this era under Steve Kerr. Like they hate running pick and roll up there in Golden State. They like to have
Mhm.
guys moving off the ball. So Jimmy's always was going to be very comfortable there. And to your point earlier, Jimmy gives you a guy who is different than Steph, different than any of those other guys. Like Jimmy gets to the line at a high rate. It's just really all it comes down to is everyone loved to talk about how the Warriors are playing an expanded rotation to begin the year. Expanded rotations are kind of a scam. Okay, no coach wants to play 12, 13 dudes because that means that he ain't comfortable playing non-dudes. Like trade some of them dudes to maximize your ceiling, especially when you got guys who are emotional and don't want to play as hard if they don't see they got a chance to do something special. And that's what the Warriors did. And you can see that from Draymond Green. When Draymond don't play with Steph, he plays different. When that Warriors ain't looking hot, can be different. Like Draymond not being available tanked the Warriors last year. This year Draymond, he's been at least on the court. He's been very focused. He's been very locked in. And since Jimmy got there, Draymond has been blowing offenses up. That kind of a thing makes the Warriors scary. Because when Steph is on his game, when Draymond is on his game, and now Jimmy's not getting suspended on a regular basis. He's playing games, right? Like
Mhm.
Jimmy should be well rested after you know Pat Riley and him couldn't see eye to eye in his last weeks in South Beach. Like that team obviously is catching lightning in a bottle right now. We'll see how long it lasts.
For sure, man. And something I want to point out here when it comes to their win streak, they haven't had the highest level of competition. A lot of those teams that they've played are not the best. So you have the Kings in there, you have the Mavericks in there, super banged up. The Pistons in there who have been pretty solid to this point, but still not necessarily a juggernaut. The Knicks that have been kind of up and down. So you look at who they've played, and I mean, there's solid teams in there, no doubt. But they're not exactly the type of like top tier contenders that you look at as like a good litmus test when it comes to like trying to figure out if they're a contender or not. They've already played their games against like the Celtics and the Thunder and the Cavaliers. So those aren't remaining on the schedule. But in the next week or so, I think they do have a few games coming up here that will be a good kind of test for where they could go from here. So looking at this team, it looks like they have a really good thing going. It remains to be seen if they're legit as far as a title contender. They haven't played those great teams yet, but some of them are coming up, and there'll be a really good test on what they can do here coming up in the next few weeks. But you touched on Curry when you were kind of breaking down the team a little bit, and I think he has been a huge beneficiary of Jimmy being back in the lineup here, or Jimmy coming into this team. Uh, Curry over his last 16 games, I mean, he's right up there at 30 points a game, 40% from three on 13 attempts, 6 assists. That's the type of Curry numbers that we're kind of accustomed to seeing from a guy that's been all NBA several times, been an MVP multiple times, a guy that's carried a team to a championship multiple times. And now that that version of Curry is back, it becomes easier to see them really making noise in the playoffs. Because before it was, he was around 20 to 25, and he was a good player, but not the type of top tier guy that we're used to seeing here necessarily from this team. So, I like to think that they are going to be scrapping the playoffs. They're going to give some teams some trouble, especially since they look pretty balanced and they have a good thing going on both ends of the floor. And like you said, that motion offense that the Kerr and the organization runs is such a benefit because it allows really everybody to get involved. And even if you're not playing 12 or 13 guys, you're playing 9 guys, all those guys are a threat every night. Moses Moody, Kevon Looney, like whoever it is, Quentin Post has been playing well recently. All those guys are kind of chipping in here. So, they're second in the league in bench scoring, 44.6 a game. I think that's a huge benefit for this team, and it allows some of those top tier guys to not get worn down, and they'll be fresh in the playoffs for sure. So, do you see this team as possibly kind of getting into that conference finals mix based on what they've displayed so far?
That part is interesting to me. The Warriors have only had one season, where they've been in the conference finals since Kevin Durant left in 2019. But because they won the title that year, people still think of the Warriors as that team that you have to fear. So, I mean, I think you have to have appropriate fear, of course, mainly because they have guys who have done it as far as getting finals. Like Jimmy hasn't won a chip, but he dragged multiple Miami Heat teams to the finals at least. Jimmy has the history of being a playoff riser. Draymond knows what it takes to adjust his game in the playoffs, and Steph is obviously one of the greatest of all time. The question is the rest of those dudes, like you making a playoff run. It's like, is your style of play going to be something that ends multiple team seasons? That's what that means. And I think that they are certainly a threat, but I think you got to look at, you know, who you'd have to face. Like right now, I think the Warriors' main thing, even with how well they've played, they had to have played this well to get to the top six. Like,
Mhm.
I don't think people realize how uninspiring this team was for as long a period of the season, like basically
Mhm.
from mid-November until they got Jimmy. Like this team was not they would have been happy just to stay in the play-in. So I'm not putting them above teams that have played better for longer.
Yep.
And if you're, but here's the thing: if you're six, can you knock off one of those, teams that are right now in the 3 or 4? Like you're talking about a Lakers matchup. Steph doesn't have the same energy against the Lakers as he does against some of these other teams. Now that would be a very intriguing first round series. I'm know damn well that the Warriors would much rather face a Grizzlies or a Rockets team, someone that they can try and intimidate, um, in the first round. Like they have a history of playing better against teams that are a little bit lower in that veteran weight class. So that's going to be the thing with me. Like who we're going to have this conversation now, and it's like, what can they do based off of who they're playing and the makeup of their schedule? But when April comes and we can actually see the matchups, that's when it's like, okay, who's got a good deal or not? Everyone who's participating in March Madness knows exactly how that is. You might like a team, then you might mess around and get in the wrong bracket. So
True.
I don't think if you're asking me if the Warriors are bracket proof, I would say absolutely not. But there's some time. There's some time for them. You alluded to who they might play in their schedule coming up, and honestly, let's see if let's see how they integrate Jonathan Kuminga, because Jonathan Kuminga is a very difficult player to have on this team. He's a guy
Yeah.
who has to play, but he's a guy who has not always helped the Warriors, even if he's playing well himself. So that's
True.
going to be interesting to see how Steve Kerr manages that.
That's a really good point. I wasn't even thinking about Kaminga. It's easy to forget about him. He's been out for months. So they're going to have to reincorporate him into the lineup. And yeah, for sure, there could be some difficulty there, some growing pains, because he doesn't offer that level of spacing that a lot of other guys in the court offer. So no, 100% agree. That's going to really determine kind of how they go forward from here. So looking at another Western Conference team that's really been rising the past few weeks, they're not going to be in the contender talks. They're still a long shot for the playoffs. Don't really see that happening either. But want to give them some credit here because relative to, I think, preseason expectations, or at least where they were to start the season, they've done some really good things here, and some guys have really stepped up. So I'm going to be covering the Portland Trailblazers here the next few minutes, looking at what they've been doing, where they're at right now. They had a really good stretch there in that January to February window. They played 11 games. They won 10 of them. They went 10-1 from January 19th into February. They were only allowing 102 points a game in that stretch. They had a top 10 defense over that period of time, and a lot of guys were stepping up in big ways. One player that comes to mind for me, I think all season has been impressing me, is Tsunami Kamara, one of those younger wings that they have. They got in that trade, getting DeAndre Ayton. Just everything that he's done for this team has just been really impressive, especially from the defensive end of the floor. I mean, I've watched a video by Thinking Basketball on YouTube the other day, kind of comparing him to like a mini Scottie Pippen in some ways. And, obviously he's nowhere near the caliber of player that Scottie Pippen is. But when it comes to his size, what he can do, disrupt plays from the wing position and be versatile, cover a lot of positions, you can see some of those similarities there. And for a guy that was drafted 52nd, he's been really impressive. The 3-point shot is decent. He's gotten up to round league average 36% or so. So somebody that's willing to shoot 4.5 attempts a game, going to hit a decent number of them. And then on the other end of the floor, he's going to pick up full court. He has great instincts and timing. He has the great ability to fly in weak side, get blocks, get steals, guard some bigger players, guard guards, and dunks and threes has him in the 94th percentile in estimated defensive plus minus. So he's in the same ballpark in that stat as somebody like Jaren Jackson Jr., just to kind of give a little bit of context as to how effective he's been for the Blazers. So that's something that's come to mind for me when it comes to their big turnaround and really kind of boosting them up, especially when it comes to defensively. I think that's a big reason why. When it comes to the Trailblazers law, I mean, obviously they've been impressive. They're not going to do anything crazy this season, but they're making progress here. So, how do you feel about their overall outlook compared to the beginning of the season? And, if you've seen Kamara recently, what have been some of your thoughts on how he's been playing?
Yeah, I'll start with Kamara, man. Every time someone brings him up, I think about how the Suns just threw him into a deal to acquire Nurkic and Grayson Allen, and I'm just like, you wind up using a first round pick on Ryan Dunn, and maybe what's crazy is you're hoping Ryan Dunn, gets to make an impact the way that Kamara does, now, like
Yep.
you use that pick in the bottom, but one of the last 10 picks of the second round of his draft, and you threw him into a deal after summer league. Like it's a thing bad teams do. Like you're a week from bringing this guy to training camp, and you're like, yeah, sure. We'll just
Yep.
dump him. Like that's something that you see bad teams do. That's something that you see teams do in like the 20th century. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
teams used to not value, their second round picks at all, even from a developmental standpoint, not even bring them to camp. You never hear from them. You can go in the history of the NBA draft and see a bunch of dudes, and it's like, oh, you got drafted? Like, I mean, that I will always connect Kamara to the Suns. Like, he's the kind of guy that Phoenix needs.
Yeah.
That Phoenix would have absolutely had starting next to KD and the Book and all those other guys. And maybe the Suns wouldn't be a bottom 5 defense right now. On the flip side, the Blazers have played great basketball. Not recently, unfortunately, they've lost 5 or 6. Again, you look at that schedule. They just couldn't keep punching above their weight. I mean,
Yeah.
it's tough to win games when you're playing the Cavs, the Celtics, the Thunder, this version of the Warriors. So they've like they're just. I give Chauncey Billups a lot of credit. I give guys like Kamara a lot of credit. Like he's got the body of a modern NBA defender. That's where it starts. Number two, he's gotten a lot of minutes. I actually think he can be better defensively. I think that he can be even more locked in and even more consistent. And you've just seen a difference. I think what makes the Blazers tough is that they look at the body types of one of those guys. All those guys have something special about them, whether it's positional size, length, the fact that Chauncey doesn't have a lot of small dudes out there, at once. Your small guards are a guy as athletic as Simons, someone who used to start at the 2, and a guy like Scoot Henderson, who is literally a rocked up point guard, who still doesn't know what he doesn't know yet. So if you got guys playing hard with that level of size, physicality, and focus, you might do some things defensively. And I think teams that weren't ready to play them understood that. The teams that did not underestimate them, well, they haven't had too many issues there. So again, Portland almost knocked off Cleveland. You know,
Yeah.
that was a hell of a finish. In that game, what was that, a couple weekends ago? So it's for me, man. I'm just going to be interested to see how they proceed going forward because I don't think Chauncey. I don't know if Chauncey's going to be back next year. I think Chauncey Billups is a viable NBA coach. I don't know if Portland sees a future with him yet. That is something that will be determined over the next month or so.
Yep.
And and likewise, Portland. Yeah, you know what? When the big season began, I didn't think Portland would be contending for a playing spot, but I did say that between the young guys they have and the veterans that they have, that's that team has NBA players.
Oh yeah.
That's a group that you don't necessarily want to face early in the season. I follow the Clippers. I saw the Portland Trailblazers knock the Clippers off in a game where both teams barely scored 100 points, right? So,
Yeah.
like that's the thing. The Blazers have not been as embarrassing this year as they have been in previous years. They have a group that is, they don't have a blue chipper. They don't have a guy who you go into every game saying, okay, this guy can take a game over and just win off of talent. They're not that, but they have a lot of good NBA players. What they
Sure
need
do.
to do is they need to adjust. Some of these vets don't need to be there no more. Like
Yeah. Agreed.
DeAndre Ayton, Jeremy Grant, guys like that. Matisse Thybulle is on their books. I think Matisse is probably making close to this. I think he's like fifth or sixth in highest average salary per year. He hasn't played a single game all year. Robert Williams, coming back from injury, he's been in and out. So none of those guys are Donovan Clingan, a guy that they drafted in the top 10. So they have to balance out their roster with guys who are going to be a part of their long-term future. They have a way too many expensive veterans on that team, considering where they're at. That's the next step for them.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. Looking at the roster, I mean, like you said, Grant is kind of awkward fit right now. Maybe even Simons is somebody they can look at. I know tons of teams out there would be just clamoring to get his services, get his shooting, get his shot creation. So he's a guy that could be
I
a
don't think
high.
that's I don't think that's the case there. Like, cause he makes too much. Like, I think if
He
those
does.
dudes
He
could get
does.
traded, they would have been traded.
Yeah,
And I think that contract that Jeremy has, and I'm a Jeremy Grant fan of his career and how he got to even be at a point as a player to get that kind of deal. Look at where we were 5 years ago when he was, in a contract year with the Denver Nuggets, playing in the bubble, helped that team get to a conference finals when we were absolutely not thinking of the Nuggets as that kind of team. You know, like Jeremy Grant was that kind of guy, but then he got paid with Detroit. And honestly, I think that his best years as that kind of guy have been wasted on these Pistons and Blazers teams. Like I don't think Jeremy's, especially with that deal, his value's just not the same. I don't think Jeremy has the juice to, make an impact on games like that. Like you'd like Jeremy Grant if you could get him for the fraction of the cost, but that
sure.
dude is making the kind of money that he's making with the years attached on that deal while shooting well under 40% from the field. And it ain't because his jump shot's broke. That jump shot is a long way from where it was at Syracuse. It's the
Yeah,
other things. Like he's just not as physical anymore. He just doesn't have like he's had so many games where you look up and it's like, he under 20%. You know what I mean? Like that's what's going to be hard. If the Blazers could get off of guys like Ayton and Grant, they would have done so at this deadline. That's the hard part for the Blazers front office, in addition to who is actually going to be coaching this team in the years ahead.
no, yeah, I no. When it comes to Grant and Aiton, no, 100%. Those guys, that it's tough. Like they're kind of in between a rock and a hard place when it comes to them. So it might be a situation where they just have to ride it out for a little bit, at least until you get to a spot to where they're expiring, and it's easier to kind of justify that, or another team to justify bringing them on. But yeah, in the meantime, it's going to be tough. But though either way, I think they've done a lot of great things. And, aside from Kamara, I think another impressive guy has been Denny Avdia for them. And I think what he's brought to this team has been really solid. We talked about rim pressure and the ability to generate free throws when we were talking about Jimmy Butler. Avdia does a lot of those same things for the Blazers, just getting them easier opportunities. I took a look at, how much he's at the rim. 44% of his shots are at the rim, which is 85th percentile based on what Clean the Glass has. 97th percentile in percentage of shots that are shooting fouls, 89th percentile when it comes to non-shooting fouls. So he generates a lot of foul shots for this team. And I know on-offs are at the end-all be-all, but the team is scoring 4.6 points more per 100 possessions when he's on the court. So he definitely does a lot of positive things for this team. And I think he's kind of underrated, honestly, as a guy that 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", whatever he is. I think he uses his tools to the fullest effect, which you can't say that for a lot of guys. We talked about Jeremy Grant. He's about that same size. And like you said, just doesn't have the same level of physicality, aggressiveness. But Avdia, man, he's just like a bull in a China shop sometimes when it comes to going downhill. So just wanted to shout him out as well. 15 points a game, 6 rebounds, and about 28 minutes a game. So he's definitely a big contributor for them. And he's done a lot of great things. I think that was a good deal for them. We talked about the bad deals, but got to give them credit for that one, bringing him in. He's had a great year, and he's one of those guys I think the Blazers could actually feel comfortable about having on the team for the next 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it is for him. So no, he's
Yeah, the thing that you brought up the rim pressure for Adia. I mean, it's his fifth NBA season. That dude's free throw rate has gone up every single year. He's obviously made these gains in his game in anonymity because of who he's been playing for. The next playoff game that dude plays will be his first. We know how it is with guys like that, but even that move for Portland, like my first reaction was, you are making a win now move when your franchise ain't quite there. But that's a guy that you want, like he's got a great contract. He does have the ability to play with the ball in his hands. I actually think he's better with the ball in his hands than he is as a guy that you just, ask to sit in the corner and space out. Like,
right.
That's where he is comfortable. There are guys that you typecast sometimes and say, you need to be a corner guy, or you need to be a guy who, is a last option guy, and maybe that was what Chauncey thought of Adi when they first got him, and he struggled a bit, but featuring that guy, I mean, as bad as Jeremy Grant has been this season, that's how good Denny Avdia has been. Like, give the ball to that guy. Like, Danny's having the kind of season that you would have liked, Jeremy to have, and maybe those guys aren't compatible. But it's actually better to have Jeremy off to the side because he can shoot the basketball fine, and Denny's not the smoothest shooter. I don't think Denny is, and that's why people thought maybe Denny might be a bust because when you're a young player but not necessarily a point guard, they just be like, hey, you'll figure it out. You're getting discarded. You're off to the side. You're not the best shooter, but you're not getting asked to do the things that make you who you are at your best version of the player. He now is in that place where, again, I'm not impressed with his shooting. He's an average shooter, but he is a guy who can draw fouls. He's a guy who can make plays with the basketball. He averages 3.5, close to 4 assists a game. Like, those are on ball guys, and he's an on ball guy who he's capable of doing really good things the more he touches the ball. And I think identifying that is really important. There's going to be, again, we're about to watch March Madness. We're about to see college basketball, especially if you don't really watch a lot of college basketball. I am that person. And you're going to transition to the NBA draft, and you're going to be like, okay, so what kind of young player are you going to be, and what can you be later? I think teams have to draft for both. Understand what a player is and what a player could be. Abdi is a tricky one, like, because you always if you're not going to be like obviously giving the ball to a guy, and this is always going to be hard for non-guards. Guards, you're like, yeah, of course we're going to give you the ball. What the hell are we doing? For Abdi is he's a huge dude, man. Like he's six
He
eight.
is.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But he's a guy who can play the 2, the 3, the 4. But you have to give him the basketball, and it's been fun watching him progress through this kind of a season for Portland. They're so much better when he's on the floor and has the ball in his hands.
absolutely, man. Could have said it better myself. So we're going to look at one other team here that's really been making strides this season. We're going to switch conferences this time, going over to the Eastern Conference. And speaking of guys that have the ball in their hands a lot, uh, Detroit has an individual by the name of Cade Cunningham that's been tearing up the league this season. Um, Everybody knew he was a good player before this season, but I think this year, now that he has better pieces around him, better coaching, I think we're all kind of more aware of what he's capable of, and he's been able to demonstrate that even more this season at, I mean, crazy averages, 25, 6, and 9. I mean, those are star numbers. And he is the number one option on a team that is rising through the Eastern Conference. Now they're in the top 6, which coming off of last season, I mean, just a monumental leap. I mean, they were dreadful last season. And we talked about them on this podcast about what they don't have, what they're lacking, their shortcomings. Looking at this version of the team, I mean, they patched so many of those holes so well. But of course, it starts with Cade. Looking at what he's been able to do on ball, assist percentage is at about 40% based on cleaning the glass. He's even more efficient. True shooting is up to 56%, a few percentage points higher than last season. He's redistributed his shots a little bit. He took a lot of long mids last season. He's redistributed a lot of those to the short mid this season, about 9% more from short mid, about 35% of his shots total. So I think a big part of why he's done that is just the ability is there now with more spacing. It's not as clogged. He's able to get deeper into the paint there. Having guys like Malik Beasley on the team, and more legitimate offensive threats like Tobias Harris is, I think, done wonders for his game. Last season it was, okay, Beef Stew is out there, Czar is out there, a lot of guys that just don't offer that kind of spacing. Ivy, I know he's been out for a while, but I think he was a little bit of the problem as well last season. Now it's like, hey, he can play his game. Like, hey, he could just go out there and do what he does best, using his size, using his footwork, using all his great skills to be a difference maker. And, I think he's been awesome, but I want to give a lot of credit as well to Malik Beasley, a guy that they signed, coming in and shooting 41% on 9 attempts. I mean, that's a sharpshooter if I've ever seen one. 54% from the corner on threes. I mean, you can't leave him. 16 points a game. He's just been super efficient, and you could not have wished for a better season from a guy that's been known as a shooter. As good as he's been in his career, I think this is the pinnacle for him in terms of just lacing the nets, just getting hot and opening up more for those other guys on the team. So those are two of the names that I think of first when it comes to the Pistons. There's a lot of guys that have been great, but I think those two have really been some of the main catalysts in terms of getting this team to where they are today, which is massively improved from last season.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the Pistons a couple times since the All-Star break. Once in Detroit, and I watched James Harden put 50 on their heads. So there's that as well. But I think it's not complicated with Detroit. They got themselves a front office that put real NBA players on the floor next to Cade. It's really that simple. It turns out getting pros who are, they don't have to be stars, but getting guys like Malik Beasley, getting guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., getting guys like Tobias Harris, and having those guys in your rotation, yeah, that might matter compared to some of the guys that Cade was playing with last year, some of the lineups that Cade was playing. I mean, Killian Hayes played 1,000 minutes for Detroit before I think before the All-Star break last year, and then he went from a starter to being outright waived.
Yeah,
You
just
know,
out.
because they're like, we're not going to let Monty Williams continue to play Killian Hayes.
Right.
Jaden Ivey was just he was benched basically. Like I don't think anything's wrong with Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren, but playing those guys together as much as they did, yeah, it's like it's a lot different when you can slide a guy like Tobias Harris in there. Like they just have guys that JB Bickerstaff has done a great job of putting guys in position to succeed. Like JB's done this before.
Yep.
JB took over a Cleveland team that was an just annually dysfunctional, and they went from the post LeBron wasteland in the East to eventually getting to the play-in tournament, eventually getting to the playoffs, and even getting to a spot where they could come back in a game 7 and win a game, even though everyone knew that that team, or at least the head coach, wasn't going to be a part of what their future was. So JB's been motivated. Like JB got fired from a team, even though he brought that team, as far as he brought them. That front office did not, they complimented the young talent that they had been accumulating, because a lot of those dudes are still there. Killian Hayes ain't there no more, but
Right.
Cade is that guy. And it was a matter of one, get healthy. Two, after all those minutes where you're getting your ass kicked in these lineups, take something from that. And
Mhm.
Cade is punching back this year, and he's got a group of guys that he's able to punch back with. Cade is like, he Texas light skinned Luca in a lot of ways.
I can see it.
Like
Yeah.
Cade is a 6'6", incredibly ball dominant player. Like there's no other, there's a major drop off as far as like who the star of that team is after Cade. And Cade is people take for granted. This dude is 23 years old.
Yep. Just getting
23 years
started.
old. Look at where Grant Hill was when he was 23 years old for that same franchise. Okay. Grant Hill played his first playoff games with the Pistons at the same age that Cade is about to play his first playoff games with the Pistons. And Grant spent, a lot more time at Duke than Cade, Cunningham spent at Oklahoma State.
True.
And so I think that's really what it is. They everything that the Pistons have right now is playing with house money. I think they wanted to be competitive this year. I did not anticipate them being not only in the playoff race, but they might not even need to play in tournament. That is
Yeah.
that is a phenomenally triumphant sign of progress for everybody involved. The stars. Shout out to those vets and role players who came in. Shout out to those other young guys. Those guys are really good teammates.
Yep.
Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren, Beef Stew, even a guy like Marcus Sasser who doesn't get to play every game, but like, he's if that guy's your third point guard, great. Shout out to the front office for not being complacent and bringing a guy like Dennis Schroeder in, you know, because one of the biggest issues the Pistons had, even when they were starting to get better, Cade turns the ball over too much.
He
But now
does.
you got a guy in Dennis who can run your offense in a pinch, but also can play with Cade.
Right.
That's been good. Their team makes sense, and now they get to see what that looks like in a playoff setting, and they get to what that team just needs is their young players to continue to take steps, Cade included.
Absolutely, man. I want to key in on what you said about the house money. Like at this point, this team is just playing free, no pressure. I mean, they supposed to not supposed to be here by all accounts based on like where they were last season. So everybody's just enjoying the ride. Like you said, those younger guys are being great teammates, just playing their role as well as they can. And I got the chance to see Cade and the Pistons earlier on this season. I went to see them play Denver out in Denver around Christmas, and I was thoroughly impressed by just Cade's ability to just get what he wants, just be that driver of the team. And you talked about some of his shortcomings and turnovers. I mean, he does a lot, but he can't do everything. So getting Schroeder in there, getting a little more creation, I think that's something they really need. Is just another guy in the backcourt since Ivy is out to really just kind of like run the show and get things started for them. So no, 100% agree with your points there. And no, I'm excited to see what they can do in the playoffs. I think they're going to be a tough out, even if they are swept in the first round or gentleman sweep. Like regardless of what the result is, like this is a great season for them, and they're going in the right direction. So now from here, it's just going to be really exciting to see what they can do. So unfortunately, there's the other side of the coin. There's a few teams here that have not been so great to this point in the season. At least recently, they've just been taking a turn for the worst. And this first one pains me. I'm sure you can see the D Wade jersey behind me. So the Heat are definitely a team that I follow quite a bit, and watched them last night, and it was it was pretty much rock bottom for Miami Heat this season. They played Charlotte. I didn't know this law, but Charlotte came in 0-11 in the division before last night, and Miami gave them their first win. Bottom of the Eastern Conference, all their numbers are awful. They've had some awful losses. I think they had like the worst 3 or 4 game stretch in terms of point differential, like in NBA history. So, I mean, they've been just dreadful, but Heat still couldn't close the deal. They were up 17 last night to Charlotte, couldn't close it. They've blown 17 leads of 10 or more points this season. Just really atrocious stuff in the fourth quarter. And I mean, I think there's a few reasons for this, but poor shot selection, I think, is one, especially when it comes to Tyler Hero. The just not taking care of the ball enough. I think they have a lot of turnovers and key stretches of those close games, and that hurts them a lot. Honestly, I mean, I think in those moments they miss Jimmy a lot. We talked about what Jimmy offers the Warriors, and for all his shortcomings and all the drama he caused the Heat, he's a guy that you can give the ball to and say, "Hey, get us something at the end of the clock," whether it's like a short mid-range shot or free throws, something like that. He would carry the Heat into those moments a lot for when they needed something, and he's not there anymore. And Tyler struggled in those moments, and Bam every now and then does a lot for them, but they don't run the ball through Bam a whole lot, at least when it comes to those last few minutes. So they have a lot of problems right now just closing games, and I don't see it getting really any better anytime soon. They have a really difficult schedule coming up the next 8 or so games, a lot of over 500 teams. But on the bright side, I mean, this is great for their lottery odds. They might have 2 first rounders in this draft, one from Golden State due to that trade, which right now is in the 20s, I believe 21 as of today. And if the Heat keep dropping like this, I mean, they're going to keep their pick, which is protected 1 through 14. And right now it's at 11, and it could get even better. They're not far behind Portland, Chicago in terms of wins and losses. So, yeah, I mean, overall, it's just been rough for them this season. They've had a lot of ups and downs, more downs, especially recently, and they just can't close games. A lot of these losses are 5 points or less, and it's just kind of the same thing over and over. So, I mean, they have a lot of work to do in the offseason. Hopefully, they can take advantage of these first rounders that they will probably have. But in the meantime, I think it's just going to be more tough sledding for this team. So, do you have any general thoughts on Miami? And what did you think about that trade? When they shipped off Jimmy to bring in Wiggins and get that first rounder.
Well, just like I said, like you want to be the team that instead of playing a bunch of role players, you want a good star, a star who's going to be available and play like a star. Um, I think that you want the team that gets the best player in a deal instead of having to be, getting a bunch of role players, getting a bunch of picks. At least for this year, that deal sucks. Like it just sucks for them. Jimmy
Yeah.
Butler, obviously wasn't playing a lot for Miami because of the issues that they had, but damn it, they got Andrew Wiggins, and Andrew's missed a ton of time as well.
Yeah.
He's played
Yeah.
what 8 games. He's played 8 games for the Heat, and I don't think they've. I mean, how many of those games have they actually won? Like Andrew's been it's been very rough. Like I think they've won only 2 of the games that Wiggins has played in a Miami uniform. One of those games was required overtime at Toronto, and I think the other one was a blowout of the Hawks. Like they and the thing is, no matter you talk about that protected pick, like they're still squarely in the play-in tournament right now. I doubt that they slip out because of the state of the conference. And who knows? Like you're talking about the Hawks, Magic, Heat, Bulls, like I'm honestly, it's you probably want to see the Heat because there's just nothing threatening about them. Like Jimmy went from Tyler Hero trying to be Steph Curry and Bam Adebayo being a player who approximates Draymond Green's role really well to actually playing with those dudes for
The real
real.
thing.
You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? We talked earlier about with the Warriors about the movement, offense, and everything. It's like, the Warriors were not a very good fourth quarter team. Now you don't worry about it as much. It's interesting. The Heat haven't been a very good fourth quarter team for a while. Like everyone talked about the Suns last year and how bad the Suns were
Yeah.
in the fourth quarter, and absolutely deserved because the Suns were the most unserious fourth quarter team as far as a good team, right? Good team as I could remember. But the Heat quietly had a bad fourth quarter season last year as well, and that was with Jimmy. This team lacks a real facilitator and organizer. In general, they are a tough team to adjust to because they are conditioned well. They play hard. They play such a different style and brand of basketball than you're used to seeing. You can't be unprepared facing the Heat. But what's funny is a lot of teams in the middle of a game realize how to play the Heat, and then the Heat get absolutely pummeled from there. You mentioned last night playing a woebegone Charlotte Hornets team up 17 at home, and they couldn't close the game. There's been so many games like that because the
Tons.
Heat don't have guys that control the game,
Yeah.
Like they just don't. They don't have guys who impose their will on games. I love Bam Adebayo. Bam cannot be the top player of a team looking to do something for real. And
Yeah.
that's not Bam's fault. Like, it's just that we can't be. I think the Heat have for years tried to turn Bam into something that he's not. I think Bam's a
Yeah.
very good player, but Bam ain't never going to stretch the floor consistently. Bam's never going to be a guy who, scores at the level where you can consistently ask him to beat. I mean, Bam's played 8 NBA seasons. How many times has he averaged 20 a game? Just the one time, you know what I mean? And it
Mhm.
ain't happening this year. Um,
No, it is not.
Tyler, I love Tyler Hero, but again, um, like I think the Heat have for years tried to ask Tyler to be the main guy, the main point guard or whatever, and it's like you can do that. Tyler can get numbers that approximate that value, but as far as winning games and consistently controlling possessions, he's not. He's just not that guy. Now the Heat are trying to start Davion Mitchell.
Hmm.
Again, no one in their right mind will ask Davion Mitchell to be a great table setter for a team. Like you're still going to play through
Yeah.
Tyler, and you're still going to
Right.
play through Bam. The defense isn't the issue here. It's the fact that they can't get the possessions to last the game and to be good enough. So that issue is not going to be solved on this roster. Andrew Wiggins,
Yeah.
see with Jimmy at the very least, Jimmy can be like, if you need me, I got you. Like Jimmy was
Yep.
not showing up every game on a quarter to quarter basis. Like Jimmy has a lot of games where he's just like, it's a regular season. I ain't doing it.
Right.
But that's kind of how Andrew always is. Andrew has an issue of tapping into that higher level of takeover. That's
Yeah.
that's been the story of Andrew's career. Andrew's a lot better when he's playing with other guys, and he can. But you saw what the Warriors look like with Andrew on the roster. Again, that's not a criticism of Andrew Wiggins. We just have to understand what kind of player are you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you had Terry Rozier. Like, how many point guards have the Heat basically quit on, realizing, oh snap, this guy ain't really that dude. Like we saw
Yeah.
with Kyle Lowry.
Hmm.
And again, that's no fault to Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry was drafted in 2006.
Right. Shouldn't even be here anymore.
You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
y'all did that. So um the Heat have issues, and their aura has prevented them from taking the requisite criticism for those issues. They should have traded Jimmy before we could have saw that, this Jimmy Butler at the end of his half-life with a team is explosive. It's like radioactive, okay?
Hmm.
And the Heat front office they did this. They're the ones sending statements out saying we're not trading Jimmy Butler, et cetera, et cetera. Now you're having your worst year in 10 years. And you're going to need to get lucky. Like
Oh
someone
yeah.
I'm really disappointed in is Jaime Jaquez Jr. Like he had an expiring rookie year. I thought Jaime was going to be in the Jimmy Butler plan. Instead,
Right.
Jaime's been underwhelming.
Hmm.
I think this team needs a real look in the mirror. It's easy to say, "Oh, Jimmy wanted this, Jimmy wanted that." Of course, Jimmy wants that. He's going to be 37 years old next season. He's trying to get
Yep.
paid one last time,
Mhm.
before his knees give out. Like that Heat team has no one to blame. They don't have Jimmy to blame anymore for anything. They're
Yeah.
going to need to really take a hard look at this team, a team that has not been top four in the conference. They've only been that, I think, once or twice, even with Jimmy. And if they want to keep their streak of not missing the playoffs in consecutive seasons, they're gonna have to really look at what they're doing this offseason. I'm fascinated to see what that looks like going forward. But for this year's cooked.
No, unfortunately, yeah. No, you're spot on, man. I mean, I could talk for hours about the Heat, but no, I think you're spot on. The gist of it is they just don't have that guy, and their guard play. I mean, even the past few years has just been so subpar. And great point about just having a table setter, distributor to get guys in position. You saw what Bam can do when he's has that kind of proper guard play around him, and he's not asked to be the guy. I think the Olympics was a prime example of like, of course, that's a role that you're only in like once in a lifetime, but being a little bit lower on that totem pole really helps him out just to kind of be the player that he naturally is, who's not a takeover guy. He's not going to shoot 20 shots a game and average over 20 and do all those things. You can just kind of be, hey, I pick my spots and be a great screen setter, a roller, a handoff guy, things like that. Yeah, guys are just kind of like a little bit out of position or out of their role. I think everybody's kind of shifted up a role relative to what they should be. Wiggins, Hero, Bam, I think prime examples of that. So yeah, hopefully they can get really solid guard in this draft and start to kind of get away from this whole Terry Rozier experiment. I think that really set them back. Trading a first rounder to get him, and I mean he's been pretty much like borderline playable like a lot of the time, and it's really shot them in the foot. So yeah, really unfortunate. We'll have to see what happens from here. Just a couple more teams to kind of finish this out. Memphis is another team. Past few games looked better. Before that was definitely tough sledding. They lost 4 straight. Most people know that they had 3 games in a row there where they came down to the buzzer and they couldn't seal the deal. Really unfortunate stuff. But I think the biggest problem for Memphis has been that defense. I tweeted out yesterday that Memphis ranks ninth in defense this season, but they're only 20th in the last 7 games. And then a guy that posts a lot of great graphics, Suravan, quote tweeted me, and he put out a graphic that kind of shows the ups and downs of their defense. They were top 5, 6 the first maybe 20 games, and then it kind of has the graph dipping, going back up, and then dipping way more the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks, sliding into the bottom third of the league. So I think big obvious reason for that is not having Jaren Jackson there for at least the past few games. He's in the 94th percentile in defensive estimated plus minus. Talked about him earlier when it comes to him and Kamara, the kind of impact they have. He's huge for them. Just being a guy that can roam, playing him next to a guy like Edie, I think really plays to his strengths. Just being a guy that doesn't have to just bang all game with the big guys, can be here, be outside a little bit, switch quite effectively, cover mistakes of other guys. Not having him there, I think the margin of error really drops for them. So it's a big reason why they've been a little bit more erratic, inconsistent since the All-Star break, even before that. So yeah, I mean, they've just been on a slide. And fortunately for them, though, they have rebounded a little bit the past few games. Big reason for that has been Ja Morant. And man, Ja just he drives me crazy sometimes. He's a guy that I watch a lot because I have a dynasty fantasy league, and he's the guy drafted #1 in that league, and it's just been incident after incident with him. It's been injuries, it's been off court stuff. But the past 3 games, I mean, 30 points per game in his last three, 8.7 assists, shooting 50%. So I think for Ja, it's finally just getting some consistency in there, being in the lineup. As a guard, especially, I think if you're in and out, you play 3 games and you're out two, you play five, you miss one, it's really hard to kind of get your footing and really get into a rhythm. So he's been in there and really helping this team kind of get propped up a little bit, at least offensively, and help offset some of those defensive issues they've had over the past few games. When it comes to Ja, when it comes to the Grizzlies, are you concerned, Law, about how this team is trending? Do you think they're still a real threat in the Western Conference? Looking at the top 2, 3, 4 teams up there, what are your thoughts on how they fared the past 5-10 games or so?
Basically, I think if you're a team in the West, you want to see them. You want to see them. Even before Jaren turned his ankle, I felt like the defense was falling off. I thought that you look even with their win streak, their 3-game win streak, they're still giving up. I think they've benefited from who they face more than anything else. But
Yeah.
they just they don't really bring a whole lot to the table on that end of the floor. Even with Jaren and especially without Jaren, they in that stretch where they lost 8 out of 11 games, it wasn't just that their defense wasn't very like they were awful on that end of the floor, and they just don't. They're not disruptive enough. They play, and when you look, it's like they play a lot of guys who might be hitting the wall on that end of the floor a little bit. They have a rookie
Yeah.
center who's a giant, not the most versatile defender. They have a rookie small forward, a second round pick who is a great story, but I think anytime you play rookies on good teams, you worry about how they're holding up over the course of the season. And the thing that gets hidden is the defensive impact. Like I think teams have just taken it to them. John Morant and Desmond Bain, good players, sturdy players, but especially if they're asked to do more offensively, they're not going to be pressing as much like on the other end of the floor.
Right.
And again, like I think that they have plenty of guys who play well off the bench, but I don't think that a lot of those guys, they're not plus defenders. Simple as that. Like even when they were playing well defensively, Jaren was covering up a lot of mistakes for a team that does not rebound very well and fouls entirely too much. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? That protection isn't there. They have not beaten a team that has a current winning record since February 2nd when
Wow.
they went to
Each.
Milwaukee. So
Yeah.
like um and even again in that game they blew the Bucks out because they just outscored them. They weren't necessarily stopping the Bucks. So
Right.
they even when they were good, obviously last year was a worst case scenario kind of season, but even in the playoffs when they were a high seed, the Lakers loved that matchup,
Mhm.
with the Grizzlies as the 2 seed. The year before, the Grizzlies should have beaten the Warriors in 2022, and they just they couldn't get it done. You're always going to be worried about Ja, not just because of his play style, but is he going to be there? Now, the Grizzlies have been fine without Ja this year. They are always fine without Ja,
Yeah.
but the ceiling is Ja. Like the Grizzlies have, created a Ja infrastructure where, not last year aside, like they can play without him. I don't think that really exists without Jaren Jackson Jr. So you're hoping that Ja can just make it to and through the playoffs. He's one of the least durable stars in the league. Like that's just
Yep.
an objective fact. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I would be greatly concerned for the playoff viability of this team. I think everyone on the Grizzlies, even when they were playing well, they didn't want to think about playoffs. They just wanted to improve where they're at. And that's actually right now a great mindset to have. They have so much that they need to get better at. Hopefully, the silver lining in Jaren getting hurt now is that he has enough recovery to hopefully get back in time for the playoffs. This team is going to just need to be better. I look at this team as, again, we talk all the time about teams that you quote unquote don't want to face in the playoffs. Maybe the Warriors are that team that, looking at them right now, probably don't want to see them in the playoffs with how they're playing and who they're lining up. The Grizzlies are the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, man. And yeah, I mean, you talked about their bench and, they don't have a lot going on there defensively. That's definitely a tough thing to go against and to deal with. But I mean, also just the injury situation with those other guys. I mean, right now, Ja is one of those guys that's actually playing. I mean, he's flipped the script a little bit. He's been there. Yesterday, they had a bunch of absences. Santi Aldama was out. Brandon Clark, Zach Edey, Jaren Jackson, Luke Kennard, Vince Williams, who missed a chunk of the season with an injury, with the ankle injury. So, I mean, that's 6 players right there. Zion Pullen, 7 guys that were out yesterday. So you worry about the health, even without Ja in the mix. These guys are going to be durable enough to make it through. And then you have the defense on top of that. So, yeah, a lot of questions with this team. And I think it's just too many holes, too many weaknesses to really be considered an inner circle contender. You compare to Boston and OKC and Cleveland, teams like that, maybe even a Warriors team. Like, I don't know how they would hold up against somebody like that necessarily. So they have a lot to deal with, and if Ja can keep playing like this, they have a chance to continue winning games. But that's not going to save them come playoff time if they don't get the other end of the floor short up a little bit and help combat that. So, no, 100% agree. One last team here, man. We're going to finish this out with Phoenix and look at what they've been doing here. I think you may have you talked about them a little bit when we were going into the talking about the Blazers and the Kamara thing. Yeah, for them, for the Suns, it's the same problem as the Grizzlies. It's 27th ranked defense on the season. It's the 29th defense over the last 2 weeks, 3-5 in their last 8 games. It seems like there's some chemistry issues, some communication issues, body language. Kevin Durant, there's been a few clips of him just being really frustrated with, certain plays there. Just not getting stops, not being on the same page, really hurting this team. The offensive talent is there, obviously. When you have Book, when you have KD, when you have Beal, going to get points on the board. But much like the Grizzlies we just talked about, if you can't get stops, I mean, they've been even worse. I mean, they're one of the worst defensive teams in the league, and they have been all year. So if that's the case, I mean, it's just going to be tough sledding. I mean, you're going to struggle against everybody. I mean, they've even had some inferior opponents. I think the walking wounded Dallas Mavericks, they didn't even, win against them convincingly. So just really tough stuff. I mean, they're might not even make the play-in, which is crazy to think about considering the type of offensive firepower that they have. But that's just kind of the situation they're in. And I think they've hit a wall with this iteration of the team. I mean, they have some great players, but they don't coalesce. They're not coming together very well. I think that Bradley Beal trade just really just kind of finished them off, not being able to get off of him. He doesn't play well with the other two all at the same time on the court, so bring him off the bench. It's just really difficult dynamic right now. And, I think unfortunately, with all this money they're spending and the draft capital they're lacking, it's going to result in just blowing this thing up and trying to kind of start over. Maybe moving KD as a part of that. They can't trade Beal, so I mean they gotta trade somebody to kind of start to blow this up. So that's where they're at right now. Really difficult situation. I'm probably going to do a YouTube video here in the next few weeks, kind of talking about how bad it is for them, at least in terms of the money and the draft pick situation. But for right now, I mean, they could be fun to watch at times. They're going to be competitive because of the offensive talent they have. But other than that, I mean, it looks like their season is going to end mid-April, by all accounts, at least based on what we saw so far. So,
I mean, shoot, it ended in mid-April last year. They didn't win a single
yeah,
playoff
that's
game last year.
true.
Like
Maybe just a few weeks earlier this year, but yeah.
Yeah, like the Suns have gotten worse every single year since they made the finals.
Yep.
Finals that they happened to be up 2-0 in. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The year after that, they were the best team in basketball in the regular season, up 2-0 against the Mavericks. two chances to close that series out, and they failed to do it. That's when you first heard that about the chemistry issues with guys who aren't even on the team now. Coach who wasn't on, that was 2 coaches ago. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that might have even been an owner ago. So
Yeah.
this is a franchise, a team that has taken a step down every year for like 4 years straight. So naturally they're in this spot. We've seen a team like this before. We saw the 2022 Lakers, like the team with all that talent. They get Russell Westbrook and they didn't even make the play-in tournament that year. But this team is worse because even that team had the excuse of Anthony Davis, LeBron James not making it to 60 games or whatever it was. Like Kevin Durant's played a respectable number of games. I can count on one hand how many times this team has won without Kevin Durant. It could be even worse. Beal's a bad fit, but you know what? Those who shoot the ball really well. It's a very aesthetically pleasing team if you just want to
Yeah.
look at it that way. I
They
bet a
were
lot of
fun.
people playing 2K still like playing with the Phoenix Suns because they do the thing that everybody thinks. Everyone thinks this is a make or miss league, and that's it. This is the team that proves that is not the case at all. Ain't nothing wrong with them dudes' jump shots.
Right.
Okay. It's everything else. They're the softest team in the league when it comes to defense. And I mean soft. You do not feel them. I talked about that with other teams that we talked about on this pod. You do not feel the Phoenix Suns. They don't force turnovers. They don't rebound. They don't hit you. You love to face the Suns. They're very comfortable to play against.
Yep.
And so and mind you, I've seen the Suns in person. I've seen the Suns beat the Clippers 4 times, 4-0. And every one of those games, like they won because of their shot making, but the Suns haven't won consecutive games since January ended. They have been outright the worst. Think about every team in the NBA that is trying to lose because they're so far gone. The Suns have been worse defensively than all of those teams, every single team.
Insane.
They again, they've literally not won back-to-back games since the end of January. So, like, it's just it doesn't matter who the coach is. Maybe it matters who the general manager is. That's again, they're stuck. They don't have they don't have a sense of development. You're going to say Devin Booker is the face of our team, and we can't do anything. We're stuck with Bradley Beal. Like we thought we were outsmarting everybody by trading a point guard for Bradley Beal. Like, all right, you see how that's worked out. You can't move Bradley even if you wanted to. And Bradley has no reason to give up on you see what this show is called. So like you got Kevin Durant and you got to trade Kevin because he's the only way you get out of this. You're in the same spot now that the Brooklyn Nets were in when they had Kevin. It's funny how that happens. It's funny how that happens. Like
exactly.
And you just gotta hope that like Kevin is going to Kevin's turning 37 years old next season.
Man,
like
crazy to think
you're
about.
not it's crazy to think about, and Kevin's body ain't LeBron's body. Okay. So Kevin's got a year left on his deal after this one. Good luck with that trade return. It's just like we all know what it is there. And so the Suns, the less said about them, the better. They don't really deserve this much air in the first place. Like they might sneak in the play-in tournament because of the state of the Mavericks. That was a big game that they had to win. But again, look at their schedule. Their schedule is going to make it hard for them to realistically climb. They ain't got the Clippers on there no more. So, like that's the one team that's been good that they had some real comfort playing against. It's just too easy for any team in the league to go in there and have a day against the Suns because of the defense. They are literally the team that looks amazing on paper because of big names, great team to talk about on TV. When you actually watch the games, when you actually have to go through the process of playing basketball and putting plan together to get in and out of these weeks, you can understand a little bit more why they're terrible.
Yeah, it's clear. Like you said, you watch them play and you can just see a team that has it all on one end of the floor and has nothing on the other end, and that's not going to get you very far in the NBA for sure. So No, I agree. They have a lot to work through, and yeah, they're going to stick to one of those teams that's just entertaining, but there's no real substance to them. It's the style over substance argument with them for sure. There's just not too much when it comes to like being a really good basketball team. So, yeah, I mean the Suns. It's been reported that they're looking for 3 first and a good young player. And
Good luck.
good luck. I mean, they can ask all they want, but as far as getting that fulfilled, I don't know about that. We're gonna have to see how that goes for them in negotiation talks. So I won't keep you any longer, Law. I really appreciate the time, man. It's been a great episode. Love what you bring to the table in terms of NBA coverage, Clippers coverage, good stuff. If the people are looking for you, man, where can they find you on social media and check out your work if they want to do that?
Hey, well, shout out to the Athletic. They let me do this, and yeah, like if you're on social media, I'm at Law Murray the New, and I don't think I'm that hard to find. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that.
Good stuff, man. Well, I love what you brought to the table on this pod. Thanks again. And if you guys are looking for more content like this, more great guests like Law, you can check us out on notradeclause.com, no trade underscore clause on Twitter X, and no trade clause, one word, on Instagram. We have a lot more coming your way as the season winds down and we get into the playoffs. So thanks again, everybody, for checking us out this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of this NBA season, and we hope to see you in the next installment of NTC. Take care, everybody.